Of listening to People's 51, and people may continue. We should be on page 27 of the transcript. Am I correct on that?
never anything is explained to us or asked of us, so I don't know.
Oh God, this is ridiculous. I don't even know what else. I don't know what else to do. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do.
You've got to have faith that this thing will get resolved, and that it just takes time. And like I said, you saw the video. These guys have made it very difficult for us. So no going, you know.
And you can't tell me if you sent stuff out of state, because it would be quicker.
Right. Yeah, we're hoping that it'll be quicker. They were telling me 2 more weeks, and that was last week. So I'm gonna try to get an update from them this week, but you know, a couple weeks and for at least some of the stuff. So we're gonna keep bugging them. But one of those things that you know, these things take time and a lot of requests and you know, we're kind of going from there. Okay. I will call you later today, and we'll get together this week. Okay. Okay. All right. Porsche, calling you back.
Oh, hi. Hang on one second. Hang on. Okay, bye. Yes, hi.
No, I just wanted to confirm, is Thursday, 11 o'clock okay?
Thursday, 11 o'clock, that's perfect. We're home. I'm going to have a little bit of a full house. I'm not sure if that's good for you guys. My mom's going to be here visiting. My sister-in-law, Jesse, will probably be home. Would you rather me meet something, like, I don't know?
No, that's fine. As long as we can, you know, talk in private at some point. I think they want to kind of do a little walkthrough, and then they want to show you some, maybe some maps and stuff. So if we can just grab a room or something where we won't be interrupted, that would be okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can go in my room. We can do my room. Did you say maps?
Well, yeah, I think they want to go over some of the burglary hits they've had in the area there. And,
oh my gosh, okay.
Retrace your routes, when you went shopping, when you came back home and stuff like that. So.
Okay.
So as long as we can, you know, just get somewhat quiet, we can talk, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. That's great. We can go on
or the side patio or wherever.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Sounds good.
That's great. I'll see you Thursday. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Porsche, how are you doing?
Good.
Hey, listen, I talked to the burglary guys. They're having some big meeting in a couple weeks, and they wanted to hopefully, they anticipate more photos and stuff. They want to meet with you somewhere around, hopefully June 9th, if you're going to be around then.
Oh, okay.
Are you in town?
June 9th till 11, I will be in Toronto accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award for Fabio.
Oh, you told me about that. Okay, that's the weekend. Okay.
So I leave June 9th, so just before that or just after that?
Okay, so I don't think they're having a meeting till the 8th.
Okay.
But maybe the week of the 12th, 13th, 14th, you'll be back.
Okay, hang on because you're breaking up. Let me move over the box. Hang on. Can you hear me now?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
So maybe what I'll do is we usually touch base on Monday, so I'll get over there on Monday and we'll find out when they're available that week. I haven't checked I don't know the schedule that far out, so I just know they have a meeting on the 8th. So I'll touch base with you basically on the 12th.
Okay. But can I also ask you for your email and for a set of Castro's email?
Sure. My email is my cell number, which is 30601.
Okay.
At LA
Well, were you able to, I don't know, speak with anybody or?
No, I didn't want to. There wasn't anyone early to talk to. I think one of your friends was there. Was it Deborah or something?
Yes.
Okay, she was there. I remember her from the.
Yes, yes.
Talked to her briefly. Didn't talk to anyone else. I know who Fabio's boss is. I have his name already.
Okay.
But no, we were just kind of low key, just hanging out with that. We were there for till the end, and then we had to split. I know you were probably busy at the end of that thing, so we just took off. But we saw the whole thing all the way through. I think it was really nice.
Yeah, they did a wonderful job.
What are they doing with that wall? I know you're asking about the wall that had Fabio's pictures all over it.
Yeah, I'm going to be traveling for the next few cruises, and then it's my so wherever we end up, that will be ours. We're selling the house now. I don't know where we're going to be in a month from now because I can't really do anything until I sell the house because I can't buy anything.
Is it on the market?
It's on the market with me. He's coming tomorrow, the realtor, to take pictures and stuff. I think June 9th and 10th, the agents will only open house for the agents will be here. So my realtor will have the key, and they'll be the only ones here showing the house that weekend.
Okay. All right.
So that's going to be going up for sale. And then we really not even have a roof over our heads. We don't know what's happening. So I wanted to come into this you guys can do, but MetLife called me this morning already, saying that there's only one last confirmation they need. I know you told me what you guys feel and things, but I guess they need it in writing. I don't even know.
That's the problem. I told them what my opinion was on this thing, but they want something in writing, and that's what the department is resisting at this point. So hopefully in a couple of weeks with this next meeting and stuff, that we're going to be further along. These guys.
If there's anything we can do to speed this up, I just don't, because I don't know what's happening within the next week to week here, day to day. So if there's anything we can do, please.
No,
let
I will.
me know.
I'd love to get to that point that I could satisfy our higher ups and make that call, but they're asking for a little bit more. So we're hoping that these guys, the burglary task force, comes up with they got some good stuff right now. It's just not where we need to be. So we're hoping for that to come through, and I keep pushing these guys. I talk to them a couple times a week, and they give updates and stuff. So if I have anything I can pass on, or we can clear that whole thing up, and we will as soon as we can. We don't want you guys to be, to be expensive.
Yeah, I'm asking you for your emails because I was gonna. I always forget things, and I'd rather have this written down so I know what's happening. But anyway, my dad, was telling my mom, which she's here in front of me now, to make sure that we tell you this thing that transpired when he was in Toronto with Sunday. Somebody was telling my dad something about work that he had to investigate because he had to fire somebody. And he was uncomfortable with it or upset by it. And I don't know all the details. I wanted my dad to tell you exactly what he said or what kind of happened with this. And so we reached out to him this morning, but he couldn't talk to this with other people. But I want to give him your phone number because I'm confused myself, and I want him to tell you what exactly Fabio told him.
Right.
I know that anything that has to do with work is on email. It's all documented, so I'm sure you can see that. But I don't know if it has to do with Geneva or the LA office. So maybe my dad could, reiterate what he heard.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I'm here, Monday through Thursday, every week, sometimes longer. But he can call me anytime, and I can always check it with the work. I'm in touch with I know the corporate security guy for
Okay.
well, and he can get me pretty much anything with the business. I mean, so far he's been real receptive to getting any kind of business documents I need. So he would be able to find out the particulars if your dad didn't have it.
Okay. So my dad can just call you, or do you want his number?
Either way, you can have him give me a call when he's available. Sounds like he's a busy man, but he can call me, leave a message, and I'll get back to him as soon as I can if you do that.
Okay, I'm gonna have him do that because he's kind of adamant about it. So
Okay.
I know we're all grasping at straws, but I think everything is gonna be something,
right.
at least something.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna have him call you.
Okay, yeah, we'll do.
Thank you. Okay, that's just, I'll wait to hear from you on the 30th or whatever you said. No, what did you say?
Yeah, the 30th.
The 12th?
30th.
Oh, okay, the 30th. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Hi, Monica. This is Porsche.
Yes, hi.
How you doing?
I'm okay.
Good. Hey, listen. So I spoke to your dad last
Okay.
week,
Yeah.
and a couple questions. I wanted to follow up with some stuff. Who was Fabio's? Because I guess his boss was in Geneva, Switzerland, and asked Fabio to go to Toronto to do this investigation. Who was his boss at that time?
The only one I think I know, her name is Michelle Mason.
Michelle Mason.
Yeah.
And
She was also there that night at the event.
right. I know you guys mentioned her. So she was his boss in January as well.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I mean, his boss is here, but that's the, hiding. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you cut out there. Can you hear me?
I said, his boss here is Sal
Right.
in North America, but, the top guys are in Geneva.
Okay. And all right. And when you say Sal, that's Salvador, right? Salvador Marici.
Mosseri.
Mosseri.
Sal Mosseri. Yeah.
So that's his direct boss here, but you think higher up from him would be Michelle Mason?
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you spell your dad's name?
Okay. It's O-R-S-E-O. Orfeo and Orfeo, yeah. And do you need the last name?
Same as yours?
Well, my maiden name, yes. Crescentini.
Crescentini. I should have that somewhere. Oh, go ahead.
C-R-E-S-C-E-N-T-I-N-I.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got that. And it's Orfeo. O-R-S as in Sam.
No, F as in Frank.
That's the Frank. Okay, I'm glad I asked. Orfeo. Okay. Okay, well, we're just gonna follow up on that a little bit. Your dad thought it was kind of unusual, and I hadn't heard about that particular incident from anybody yet, so
Okay.
we'll take a look at that. So I got nothing else to report right now. We're moving forward on the
What about you said you were going to call me with we're going to meet at some point next week or something like that, or the week after?
They're having a meeting with a couple other agencies that they've been dealing with, and they anticipate to get some photos and stuff. So I think they're supposed to meet on the 8th, but you weren't available on the 9th because that's when you're going to, I think,
Right.
New York or Canada or something.
Yeah, both. Yeah, New York, Toronto, and then home again on the Monday or the Tuesday right after that.
Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it's the 13th.
Yeah, they're available on Thursday or Friday. So let's wait until we get to that week and hopefully maybe something on the 15th or 16th. Just
Okay.
together.
All right.
Okay? So if anything comes out of this whole Cody thing, and that was when the company was Cody, right?
Yeah, so I think that's still like in November or something like that.
Right.
He went to Cody, yeah.
And he's first your dad said November or second week of November, then he said second week of December. Is that right? December is when it's gonna.
I can't even tell you.
Oh.
Because he travels so much, I don't even know. That's why my dad, I know he wasn't really certain of the details.
Right.
I just, said, just say what you heard, what you know. Don't, pull things out of nowhere.
Right. And any idea which accountant would have gone with him? Because you guys said he brought an accountant with him to really examine the books.
I have no idea.
Okay. Well,
I'm sure there's
Chuck would know.
here that would know, right?
Okay.
They would know, for sure.
Okay. Good enough. I can follow up with her, and hopefully she can give me some more information on that side.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Okay,
All right.
bye. Anyone?
We're good. We're good.
Doing good?
Yeah. So, like I said, we have our secretary typing up that letter, so we should be able to get that hopefully at the end of this week.
Okay. I have going on the computer and trying to download all these records. There's a lot, and it's a really. Anyway, I did it all. I'm going to send them to you, but if it's hard for you to view or read or whatever, then maybe I can come to see you. We can log in, and you guys can look right on the actual AT&T whole accounts and stuff.
Oh, okay. So it's a lot just for the 1 month still?
Well, it's home phone, my cell, Jessica's cell, Bella's cell.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
And did you have Fabio's in there also?
Oh, I do have his, but I didn't because I thought you have his phone, so you could, or computer, whatever. If you want, I could put his in there too.
Yeah, might as well, so we have it all. Because then, if they can, they'll take it. They'll just punch in. They'll search certain numbers. It shows that it'll find that number and whoever's records it is, and if it pops up, then we know these guys tried to call or calls or whatever. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna add his in there too, and then I will. I guess email it. Yeah, I'll email it over to you.
In some type of file or envelope or is it?
Well, they're all right now. They're all like I tried to put them all in nice Word documents so they're legible.
Oh, okay.
I could probably do it on Excel as well.
Well, try the Word. It's always easier, and then we can use Excel as well. So try the Word, see how that works.
Okay, I'm going to send those over, and when you get it, open them, see what you think. If it looks, if you guys can read it and whatever, great. Otherwise, I can log in, like I said, and we could just go right there to the site.
Okay. Yeah, we may do that. They know what numbers they're looking for. I don't. So let's.
Are we going to have a meeting? Did you say we're going to meet soon, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hopefully this week. What's today? Wednesday.
Yeah.
I was off the last couple of days sick. Let me call them and see what their week is like. I think we could do it either this Friday or next Friday is what their 2 days are. So
oh my gosh.
Let me check with these guys and see if they still want to show you those photos and stuff based on what they've gotten so far. So yeah. So let me get back to you. I don't know, later today or tomorrow, and if as long as we get a hold of them and we get a date, then we'll set up a date.
Okay, that's perfect.
And you can email that stuff to me, and then I'll look at that today and see if it's something that they can use to search. If not,
okay.
we can format.
Okay, perfect. I will get back on there to you now, and then I'll send it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Talk to you later.
May you collect the transcripts first?
Oh,
Collect the transcripts, please.
oh, yes. Detective Verna, would it be fair to say that in any investigation you never divulge the details of what you are doing during that investigation?
That's correct.
In addition to what we heard during the recording of conversations between the defendant and Detective Parshall, were there also several dates where the defendant called and left recorded voicemails?
I believe so, yes.
Did the defendant leave voicemails on March 13th and March 15th of 2017? Were you and your partner?
If I could refresh my recollection.
Yes.
That was March 13th and March 15th?
Yes.
Yes.
And as we heard in some of the reportings, for example, on March 8th of 2017, did Detective Parshall repeatedly tell the defendant that he would hook up a DVR or security system ASAP?
Yes.
We heard during the recorded call of March 16th of 2017 where the defendant was recorded telling Detective Parshall that she believed that his 3 kids are the only beneficiaries to his life insurance policy. Did she ever say anything else with respect to herself off tape?
Not that I'm aware of.
On the date of March 21st, did the defendant again call your office and leave 3 separate voicemails for you or Detective Parshall or your supervisor, Detective Castro, to call back?
Again, if you'd like me to look at the book, I can do so.
Please.
You said March 21st?
Yes, sir.
I don't show a number of calls. I do show that there was definitely a call.
Does it show that there are 3 voicemail messages from that date?
I don't see in the chronological that it shows that. Just that there was definitely a conversation.
Okay. Again, in the March 8th conversation that was recorded, we heard the defendant make the statement that Fabio had been the one to purchase and replace the DVR system. Did she ever make a statement to the opposite, that in fact she was the one that was home during that DVR replacement?
She did not.
In the April 17th, 2017 recorded call with the defendant where we heard her claim that on the old system there was an app where Fabio could look up and see the video feed, but that she never had access. Did she ever correct or change that statement?
No.
When she said during that conversation that she was not present when the new DVR was installed and the only new camera was the one at the front door, did she ever correct or change those statements off tape?
No.
When the defendant claimed that she had no access to the system via her cell phone, did she ever change that statement off tape?
No.
Was there another call from the defendant that took place on May 1st of 2017?
There was.
And during that particular conversation, was there a conversation with her about whether or not she had yet replaced her DVR?
There was.
And during that conversation, did she indicate that State Farm Insurance, her homeowner's insurance policy, had paid out on her homeowner's claim in order to replace that DVR system?
Yes.
And at any time, did she tell you and or your partner or your supervisor to your knowledge, that she had replaced the DVR?
She did not.
During the May 8, 2017 recorded call from the defendant, where she was talking about having difficulties due to the lack of life insurance money being paid out and looking for maybe a smaller home, did she ever mention at any point in time off tape that despite the fact that she was claiming she was having money issues, that she had just purchased a new Mustang for $62,000?
No.
You mentioned that both you and your partner, your supervisor, had conversations with MetLife, the carrier of Fabio Sementilli's life insurance policy. Was there ever any question about whether Fabio was an aggressor in his own murder?
Objection calls for speculation.
As formed, sustained.
Was there any conversation that you had with the life insurance company about Fabio, the victim in this case, acting as an aggressor?
Objection calls for speculation. No foundation.
It's overruled.
Not that I'm aware of.
There was no evidence to that effect. Is that correct?
There was none that I saw.
That wasn't the question with respect to the life insurance company. Is that correct?
Correct.
The issue was clearing the 4 beneficiaries. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you and your partner cleared 3 of them, that being Fabio's 3 children. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the only one that was outstanding with respect to your department and clearance for life insurance payout was the defendant.
Yes.
During the May 31st recorded call that we listened to, where Detective Parshall is talking to the defendant about her trip to New York City on the June 9th and then to Toronto and home on June 13th, at that point in time was your division, along with the robbery homicide division, already making plans to arrest the defendant along with Mr. Baker?
So my understanding is yes. However, I believe I was actually on vacation at the time. I was having conversations with my partner, so I was kept in the loop to some degree. But
You were aware that was
And then I'm going to object. Motion is recommended.
Denied.
you were aware that that was imminent.
yes.
And on June 14th, where we heard the last recorded call between the defendant and your partner, where Detective Parshall indicated that your secretary is typing up a letter to get her by the end of the week for clearance for the life insurance payout. Was that a ruse?
Yes.
And what does that mean?
Essentially a story to tell them to, again, put them off a little bit longer, just to put them at ease.
Your Honor, of a photograph of a Ford Expedition. It's titled Robert Baker's Ford Expedition at Sementilli Home, dated March 11th of 2017. May this photograph be marked, please, as People's 53?
Yes.
And I also have a copy of an email exchange between the defendant and Detective Parshall. May it be marked, please, as People's 54?
It may.
Showing you People's 53. Was this a photograph that was sent to you and your partner by Deborah Obad showing Robert Baker's expedition parked in front of the Sementilli home?
Yes.
And was that received on March 11th of 2017?
Yes.
In terms of the conversation in the June 14th recording between the defendant and your partner with respect to the secretary typing up a letter to clear the defendant for insurance payout, did your partner document that conversation in writing?
Yes.
And do you know what we're looking at here in People's 54?
Yes.
And do you recognize this as an email, if we start from the bottom, between the defendant and your partner, Detective Parshall?
Yes.
And does this email chain talk about the letter to MetLife for clearing the defendant for insurance payout?
Yes.
And does this appear to be an email chain that took place between June 7th of 2017 and June 9th of 2017?
It does.
I just have a few last questions to ask you. We talked at the beginning of your testimony last week about various search warrants for phone records, subscriber records, call detail records with respect to everyone in the Sementilli family, including the victim. Did you and your partner also have conversations with a surveillance unit to conduct surveillance on the two suspects, the defendant along with Robert Baker?
We did.
Okay. And that particular division, is that the Gangs and Narcotics Division?
Yes.
And did you and or your partner obtain search warrants in order to install GPS trackers on the suspect's vehicle, that being the defendant and Robert Baker?
Yes.
And initially, were GPS trackers installed pursuant to warrants on the defendant's black Ford F-150?
Yes.
Also on Jessica Sementilli's red Fiat that the defendant occasionally drove?
I think Isabella's
Okay.
Fiat.
Thank you. And Robert Baker's black Ford Expedition that we saw in People's 53.
Yes.
in terms of the GPS trackers, did that allow you and your partner to track the travel or and destination from your computers?
Yes.
And is that through some type of software that connects to the GPS trackers?
It's actually a web browser that connects to the data that's being sent by the tracking device.
And does that data also include GPS coordinates?
It does.
Longitude and latitude?
Yes.
So you can track to a particular location?
Correct.
And did you also obtain a search warrant for cellular phone pings?
Yes.
What is that?
So your cellular phone hits off of cellular towers, and these phone companies have the ability to basically triangulate your phone's position based on cellular towers. Some phone companies are better than others as far as the information provided, but it can track you down to a particular area and then give you a plus or minus in a number of meters. And sometimes the hits are really good, sometimes they're absolute garbage.
So it's another way in order to track your suspects' travels and locations.
Correct.
And does that also provide through the phone pings GPS location and coordinates?
I'm sorry, repeat that one more time.
Does it include coordinates?
As far as on the phone pings themselves? Yes. Again, it's plus or minus sometimes
Meters.
thousands of meters. Sometimes it's within 9 meters.
And did you do that through AT&T for the defendant's cellular phone and Sprint for Robert Baker's?
Yes.
And again, was that something that the phone pings that provided data that you could review again from your computers at the office?
Correct.
And did you get updated information from the Gangs and Narcotics Division as they were following and surveilling your suspects?
We did.
In addition to that, when you tracked the GPS trackers and the phone pings, did the information that you received appear to be consistent with the summaries of what Gangs and Narcotics was seeing in terms of tracking the defendant and Robert Baker to various bars and nightclubs?
Yes.
Calls for speculation.
The way the question was formed, that is true.
Did the data that you observed appear to be consistent with information you received from the people who were conducting surveillance?
Same as
That's overruled.
It did.
And was that, again, consistent with the data, the defendant and Baker going to various bars and nightclubs night after night?
Yes.
And did those dates cover, let's say, the night of February 19th into the early morning hours of February 20th?
Can I refer to my notes?
Yes.
Okay, what was the date again? I'm sorry?
February 19th into February 20th?
Yes.
February 21st into the early morning hours of February 22nd?
Yes.
February 23rd into the early morning hours of February 24th?
Yes.
February 25th into the early morning hours of February 26th?
Yes.
And after the defendant returned from a trip to Toronto that we heard or discussed in the recordings, March 3rd to March 4th?
Yes.
Whatever you want.
Mr. Levine.
Thank you. Good morning, Detective Verna.
Good morning.
Is it fair to say that following the results of the DNA comparison, which you said matched the DNA of Robert Baker, that you were convinced that Mr. Baker was one of the killers in the of Fabio Sementilli?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. And did you arrest him?
He was arrested ultimately, yes.
Well, you found out that his DNA matched, I believe, on February 14th, 2017. Is that correct?
Correct.
That was just a couple of weeks after the murder?
Yeah, roughly 3 weeks.
Okay. And how did you obtain those results?
Well, first we obtained the blood swabs from the house and also the Porsche. They were collected, booked as evidence, requested for processing, and ultimately we received the results back. That's how it works.
And at that time, you had sufficient evidence to arrest Mr. Baker. Is that correct?
I guess you could have done it right away, yeah.
Well, you had proof that his blood was among, or perhaps all of the blood that was found at the scene, in the car, at the house, in the rooms, everywhere involving the crime scene and this murder. Is that correct?
Yes.
You had no results, or did you, of a second individual?
As far as DNA results,
Yes.
we did not.
Okay. So everything matched Mr. Baker.
Correct.
It matched no other suspect.
Correct. We knew we had outstanding suspects, though.
So at that point, you could have gone out and arrested Mr. Baker
Sure.
and confronted him with the DNA and any other questions you wish to ask him, if you wish to answer them, obviously.
Sure.
You chose not to.
Absolutely.
Okay. You knew there was a second killer involved in this case, correct?
That's correct.
And I assume, obviously, your investigation was focused on finding the second killer as well as Mr. Baker, correct?
Yes.
And between the date of January 17th or 18th until the DNA results came in, from the day of the murder until the DNA results came in, this was an investigation in which you had no idea at that point who the killers might be, correct?
Correct.
And you had no suspicion involving Monica Sementilli.
No.
At some point, when the DNA results came back for Mr. Baker, did you go to Miss Sementilli and tell her that we had discovered that the killer, or one of the killers in this case, was Robert Baker?
No.
And the reason you didn't do that is you had some belief that perhaps Miss Sementilli was having some kind of relationship, affair, if you will, with Mr. Baker. Is that correct?
Well, no, not really. It wasn't until, I believe, the interview on February 21st of 2017 that there was any inclination that there was an affair happening that I'm aware of. I think that was the first that I knew about something maybe going on.
And that was based on?
Well, when we interviewed Miss Sementilli, and Jessica was also there, Jessica was the one that told us that Mr. Baker had slept over. She also denied that Baker was ever at the residence, so there was some questions there.
There were some questions there.
Yeah.
And at that point, you could have confronted her, obviously, with that evidence and asked her to explain, correct?
I mean, there was some effort to make some questions.
Well, I mean, did you ever confront her and say, were you having an affair with Robert Baker?
No.
You asked her if she knew the name of Baker, and she said she thought the name was Robert Baker, correct?
Correct.
And at a later interview with her, she volunteered to you, or in response to a question, that he was a racquetball coach where she played racquetball at LA Fitness. Is that correct?
I think it was all around the same time, yes.
Okay. She gave you what you believe was the name, which was, in fact, the correct name, Robert Baker. And
Yes.
she told you he was a racquetball coach at LA Fitness. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So again, you said at the beginning you had no suspicion about Mrs. Sementilli being involved with Mr. Baker in any way.
Up until that point, no.
Okay. So how much time had passed between the date that you received the DNA results matching Mr. Baker with the blood at the scene and in the car until you received some information, whether it was from Jessica or someone else, that Mr. Baker had been over the house or there'd been some contact with him?
I'm sorry, the date from the DNA hit to the date that we were pretty much advised of there was something going on?
Right, and you said that was based on some conversations with Jessica about
Right.
him having slept over and so forth.
Yeah, I guess it was roughly 7 days a week, somewhere around there.
Okay. And during that time, why didn't you tell Mrs. Sementilli that the DNA results had come back to match a Robert Baker?
Because it's my responsibility and my partner's responsibility to work this case. So we have a duty to not only figure out who one person is, but to figure out who the second suspect is and if anything else is going on.
Okay. So the second suspect, obviously, you were aware of was the second killer. Is that correct?
Well, what we had a video showing two people running towards the residence. We had a
Correct.
video showing the Porsche leaving with two individuals in the Porsche, and that's what we had.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your investigation initially, when you were there the first day, you had no preconceived ideas as to what had happened here other than tragically one individual had been brutally killed, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then you ended up viewing a video tape of somebody or two individuals jogging up Victoria Street from Oakdale. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the person who notified you or supplied you with the information that there might be videotape was Monica Sementilli, correct?
I don't believe she was the only person that told us about videotape. I mean, there's cameras right when you turn that corner. It's very easy to see.
I understand.
So it didn't require someone to tell us necessarily that there was videotape at the corner.
But she did tell you.
Okay.
Is that right?
I believe
You
so.
recall, and she gave you the name of the.
Yeah.
She mentioned it's the Homeowners Association, and she said she thought there were video cameras somewhere around the scene of the murder. Correct?
I'll agree with you, yes.
And she gave you the name of some Leslie Hamilton, and even a phone number and so forth to contact. Is
Yes.
that right?
Correct.
So she was providing you with information about cameras that perhaps had videoed or caught the two suspects coming up the street, correct?
Sure, yes.
And you eventually did obtain those videos, correct?
Yes.
And how did you do that?
There was a residence that was right there that had access to those videos, and they were recovered.
And you know how long that took?
It was that night. We had copies of it.
And were able to view them?
Yes.
Okay. And we've seen the video of those two individuals jogging up the street, correct?
I think the only thing I've seen in court here was a still image of it.
Okay. But there was a video of that as well.
Oh, yes.
And that video showed the individuals, when you adjust for time, and no one's questioning the times that you've given us after the adjustments. It was about 4:18 in the afternoon that you first see the two persons jogging up the street, correct?
I believe you're correct, yes.
All right. And how far approximately would it have been, if you know, from where they were first seen on the corner there to arrive at the home of Sementilli?
20, 30 seconds, I would say.
Okay. And then at some point, obviously, they had to enter the location.
Correct.
Now, in your investigation, either initially at the scene or sometime thereafter, were you able to determine, or at least in your mind, what route the two individuals had taken in order to get to Fabio Sementilli in the backyard or the patio?
Not exactly.
At some point, you believe that they had gone around the back and got him from behind. Is that correct?
That was the most likely scenario, yes.
Okay. And did you at all calculate about how long it would have taken for two individuals jogging up to have taken that route and confronted Fabio Sementilli?
I mean, if they did it without any kind of waiting, I would assume it would be very quick.
Okay.
I didn't run it myself to judge.
Now, can you tell us what time it was again that the video caught the Porsche vehicle leaving the residence?
I can look at my notes if you'd like.
If you would, please.
The time the Porsche leaves,
Yes.
correct? 16:53 hours.
That'd be 4:53 in the afternoon.
Yes,
And we know the 911 call was made about 5 o'clock, is that right? Or a few minutes before, do you know?
roughly. Isabella got home about a minute later, so the 911 call went out quickly after that. Yes.
And when you see she got in a minute later, can you place a time on that?
Well, on the camera, you can see the vehicle arrive at 4:54, so 1 minute later. So with time to get out of the vehicle, walk into the house, I mean, it's fairly quick after that.
So 1 minute after the two killers leave the location, Isabella Sementilli arrives at the house. Is that correct?
Correct.
That gave the killers about a minute to escape, correct?
Correct.
And Monica Sementilli arrived shortly thereafter, say 5 o'clock, is that correct?
I have it on the video at 5:03.
Okay. So, based on what you previously told us, without any further information, the killers would have had how much time to travel from the front location or coming up the street in the back in order to commit the killing, the murder?
So from the time they are seen on video running around the corner to the time the Porsche is seen driving away, we have, let's see here, 35 minutes, if I'm doing my math correctly.
But you had some additional information regarding a time when Fabio Sementilli was still alive during that period. Is that right?
Correct.
You had information that he had placed a phone call to his company at 4:46 in the afternoon. Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure of the time. I don't think that sounds correct. I thought it was prior to. Do you have something you can show me? That would help out. But I believe it was prior
Well,
to.
you don't have that?
4:30. I don't. Sorry, I don't.
All right, I will find that for you.
Okay.
But rather than do it at this time, let's assume we're talking about 4:45, 4:46.
Okay. I'm not sure that's correct, but go ahead.
I promise you I'll
Okay.
okay. For the sake of this question, if it is correct, then and he was alive at 4:46, then it would have been only a few minutes after that the murder had taken place, correct?
Assuming that's correct, yes.
And again, by that timetable, the murderers would have had approximately a minute or two to commit the murder, leave the location, and escape.
I'm going to object at this point because it assumes facts, not evidence.
You receive this as a hypothetical.
It's an improper hypothetical, Your Honor, because it's not based on fact.
I'm not so sure. It's overruled.
Do you understand the question?
So you're saying, no, repeat it, please.
Assuming the time is correct, a phone call is made at 4:46. You said the Porsche was seen leaving at what time?
At 4:53.
That would have left at a maximum, assuming the murder occurred right after the phone call and there was no time in between, about 7 minutes for the murder to take place for them. And then you said there was evidence of cleaning up, correct?
Yes, assuming you're correct, yes.
Okay. And there was also evidence, you said, of the suspects, the killers, traveling through the house, at least into some of the rooms, including the master bedroom, correct?
Yes, there were red stains throughout the residence, so yes, it appeared that something had happened after the fact.
Okay. So I take it you didn't try to figure out how much time that was. You just understood that it would have taken some minutes for that to occur.
Correct.
When you did your investigation, by the way, at the house, you were there the date. When you did your investigation, you were there on the actual date of the murder. You went up to the bedroom, is that correct, the master bedroom?
Yes.
You yourself?
Yes.
And you noticed some blood stains or red drops of blood in the bedroom, is that correct?
Red stains, yes, sir.
And those, as we have heard before, were all categorized and obtained and swabbed by Ms. Hawk, who was the criminalist, one of the criminalists on the scene. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure she swabbed every single stain, but she definitely recovered evidence.
Whatever she did,
Yes,
she
absolutely.
told us.
Correct.
And whatever you found, you made sure that she was aware of, at least. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, at that point, you had some concern, I assume, that this might have been a no-knock burglary or some kind of a burglary gone bad?
It could have been, yes.
And so you were interested in whether or not items were taken or stolen, removed from the house as part of the burglary?
Yes, sir.
And there was a safe there, is that right?
There was.
And what did you find in the safe?
I wasn't present when the safe was actually opened. I believe that happened in the morning, and it was Detective Bucknell and I believe maybe Gutierrez that were present.
Okay, let me ask this.
Yeah.
You said in the morning.
Yes.
Which morning are we talking about?
The following morning. So my partner and I, when this happens, we're tasked with a bunch of different duties.
Sure.
So I believe it was around 2:30 in the morning. My partner and I left. We have reports to complete. So we returned to our station and began completing reports. There were detectives that remained at the scene while other things were continuing to happen.
Which detectives do you call?
Like I said, I believe Detective Bucknell and I believe Detective Gutierrez were present.
And that was the night that you were there?
Well, this is into the following morning, so this would now be the morning of the 24th.
Okay. So the night you were there, you went into the bedroom
Yes,
and saw some ransacking, is that correct?
correct.
Did you attempt to document what may or may not have been taken? Talking to Ms. Sementilli or anyone else?
So, yes, but Ms. Sementilli was not allowed back in the residence until the crime scene was cleared. So it would be impossible for me to talk to Ms. Sementilli about what had been taken without her actually walking into the room, which wasn't going to happen because we still had an active crime scene.
And that had nothing to do with her being a suspect or anything. You just made sure all the family had been removed from the home, so there was no in any way affecting the evidence there or in any way.
Correct, and I think it's safe to assume too that we're investigating a murder. Although property was soon to be taken, the property itself at that point was not the focus. I mean, we're going to get to it, but it's not the focus in that moment.
Okay, but one of your tasks was to determine if this was an actual burglary and just gone bad and the individual was there and they came upon and killed him?
Yes.
Or whether or not this was not a burglary at all?
Sure.
So that night, though, you did not open the safe or ask that it be opened to determine what was in it, what was missing, or anything of that nature?
Again, I believe that was done the following morning.
Okay. You left that for Detective Bucknell?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let me correct myself. The phone call, it appears, the message from Fabio Sementilli was at 4:27.
Correct.
That sound better?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So It would have been from 4:27 to the time that the Porsche was seen leaving the location at, what, 4:53?
453.
That whatever occurred between that period of time. Fabio Sementilli was alive at 4:27.
I would certainly assume so.
Okay. As soon as you knew that the Porsche vehicle was missing and had been driven away, was there some, I forget what they call it from my old days of watching Highway Patrol, APB or some notification, look for that car?
So we don't use that terminology.
I know.
But yes, we put it out to the divisions that there was a vehicle taken in a homicide. We put what's called a felony stop on the vehicle. Although in this case it's difficult, there was no license plate attached to it. It had paper plates. So we put out the fact that there were paper plates on a black Porsche 911, which is a very, I would say, unique vehicle. And that's how it works.
And did you get any hits on that notification that vehicle had been seen or stopped by any officers or anyone
No.
else? You had checked, I assume, other video cameras in the area?
We did. It was a long process. There were a lot of residences that led up to Ventura Boulevard. So going back to the video, the vehicle's last seen going northbound in Oakdale. Oakdale leads out to, essentially, if you kept going north, you'd run into Ventura Boulevard. However, there's a east-west street called Wells Drive, I believe it is, that's a major artery south of Ventura Boulevard. So if you get to Wells Drive, you can make a east or west turn, or you can keep going north. But if you go east or west, there's multiple routes to get back to Ventura Boulevard. So this made us, this video gathering, very tedious.
And did it produce any results, though? In other words, had the Porsche been seen or caught in any video following the time it was seen leaving the residence and going down the Victoria?
As I sit here today, I don't recall, but I do recall that we made multiple attempts, and anything we saw was, as it pertained to our investigation, pretty inconsequential with video recovery.
What do you mean inconsequential with video?
Like, as far as the Porsche itself, we didn't recover anything that was going to help us aid in where that Porsche ultimately went to.
But it would aid you in knowing if there was any DNA in the vehicle that matched anyone on the data bank, which eventually you said matched Mr. Baker. Is
The
that
video
correct?
itself?
No, to find the Porsche vehicle to obtain any evidence from it.
Right, but you got to understand something.
Sure.
Okay? There's two of us that are working this case. And we have limited time within a day to go out and do all this stuff. So for me to go door knock 10 residences with cameras, it's doable. But that's going to require multiple days just to recover video. Because I got to watch the video before I can recover it, correct?
Okay.
So it takes a long time to do this. So it's not something that happens like this.
Understood.
Yep.
And your personnel to assist you at that time was limited to yourself and Detective Parchal?
We did have some partners that we work with in our unit. However, they have their own cases. So I can ask them to go out and get stuff. Like we sent them out to LA Fitness and Target and Ralph's because we had particular time frames we could look at. And generally, with their systems, it's easy to recover because they have people that work loss prevention that can assist us with that. When I go to somebody's house, I don't know the system I'm working with. I got to figure that part out. I got to figure out if it's even recoverable. So there's multiple things that go into recovering systems from people's residences versus going to a business.
Okay. So between the night of the killing until the time you got the DNA results, how many days was that, approximately?
I'm sorry, just to make sure I'm understanding this correct. From the night of the killing to the time we got the results, or
Yes.
from the time the vehicle was recovered?
Yeah, the vehicle was recovered how many days later?
2 days later.
Okay. And how far was it from the scene of the murder?
I believe 3, maybe 4 miles, roughly.
And was it in plain view, or was it in any way hidden in some way? Did you notice?
It was parked on I would call it a pretty rural residential street in the city of Los Angeles. These are bigger properties, but not well traveled.
Okay. And that car was immediately impounded for for evidence to be recovered, if possible, from the interior of the vehicle.
Correct.
And I assume among the evidence recovered was blood from the interior of the Porsche.
Yes, there were red stains inside the Porsche.
Were you present when that was done, or was that done by some other crime lab personnel?
I was present at the impound yard when the recovery was taking place, and I believe it was Kwan that recovered it.
Okay. And was there blood elsewhere besides the driver's side of the vehicle? In other words, in the passenger side?
Yeah, I don't recall. I don't believe so.
What about, obviously, you had a lot of blood from the house, from the garage, kitchen area, patio area, and so forth.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. By the time you had recovered the Porsche, had you any results yet from any of the blood that had been recovered from the home?
No.
But I take it that was a priority immediately. Is that correct?
It was put in on a rush,
Okay.
but we don't dictate even what that means, or even if we get a rush on a case.
Okay. A rush means that it has to be transferred to what? Crime lab, DNA.
That we were asking for priority. There's thousands of cases in the city of Los Angeles that are all requesting DNA analysis on their cases, and we are asking for priority.
But this was your case.
It was myself and my partner.
Detective Parshall was designated the lead detective.
That is correct.
And he remained so throughout the time that you worked on the case. Is that right?
I mean, ultimately, it was transferred, I believe, somewhere in March to Robbery Homicide Division.
Okay, but we heard he had unfortunately passed away. That was after the work of you and he on this case. Is that correct?
August 21st, 2019.
Okay. And the arrest took place on?
June 14th, 2017, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, for the time in which, after the arrest, did you remain on the case with Detective Parshall?
I was partners with Detective Parshall up until the time of his passing.
And during that period of time, I take it there was obviously an interest in trying to determine who the second killer was. Is that correct?
Yes, as far as the second person seen running up the street, absolutely.
Yes. You believe he was a participant, assuming it was a he, in the murder of Fabio Sementilli?
Well, we assumed they were in on it together. Yes, I don't know who did what at the time, but we assumed they were in on the crime together. Correct.
Okay. Now, between the time that you were present to examine the crime scene and the Porsche was recovered, or let me say the DNA was matched, what did you or Detective Parshall do to try to attempt to locate or identify the second killer?
Repeat your question one more time, please.
What did you do to try to identify the second individual?
You gave me some date and time frames.
Between the time that you were first there, the night of the killing, until you got the DNA results back identifying Mr. Baker.
Well, it's a little bit loaded question, sir. We didn't have anything, so we were looking at everything from burglary crews to gang members in South LA. We had no idea what we had, so
Okay.
We were doing everything possible to attempt to find out who either one of those individuals were.
Still operating on the assumption that it could have been a no-knock burglary, correct?
Absolutely.
And that's what you told Monica Sementilli that you were looking for primarily, correct?
Yes, and I want to make sure we get the terminology correct. It's not no knock; it would be knock knock.
Knock knock.
Correct.
Sorry.
Yes.
And knock knock meaning just a random burglary. Knock knock meaning find out if someone's home. You tell me.
Yeah. So at the time of this, when this case occurred, there was, and for years prior and probably years after, there was a series of burglaries that were happening not only in the San Fernando Valley area but in other areas of the city. Essentially, where crews, usually of 3 people, would arrive at a neighborhood. They would go up to houses that I would assume they have checked out before, I'm not sure. But they'd go up to the front door, they'd knock on the residence. If there was no answer, they would go around the back of the residence, usually break in through a sliding glass door, burglarize the residence, and leave with the property. They were known as the flockers, but they were the knock-knock burglary crews.
And for how long would you say you investigated that as being one of the possible reasons for the burglary or the killing of Fabio Sementilli?
How long?
Yes, at some point you made a decision that this was not done by knock-knock burglars.
Yeah, I think it was February 14, 2017.
All right.
Yeah.
So you get the DNA results matching Mr. Baker, correct?
Correct.
There are no results matching a second individual.
That's correct.
You get information that Monica Sementilli had not been truthful with you about her contact with Mr. Baker. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I believe you made the statement something, it appeared she was a little too friendly with Mr. Baker, correct?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Oh, when did I say that?
Previously when you were...
Oh, okay, yeah, I mean, sure, it sounds like something I could say.
Okay.
Yes.
And you had seen a photograph of Mr. Baker being at the family residence, is that correct?
Correct.
And he had, you said he had a Band-Aid on his finger, is that correct?
It appeared there was something on his finger, yes, in one of the photos.
Okay. So that in conjunction with what you had heard from Jessica caused you to believe that Monica Sementilli was not being honest with you about her relationship with Mr. Baker,
Correct.
that she was concealing it.
Yes.
Did you confront her with that?
No.
Object, Your Honor, this has been asked and answered.
It's overruled. But this is a good time for our morning recess. Let's take our morning recess for 15 minutes. The evidence applies. See you back in 15. So this building, everything goes wrong in this building. Last week it was colder than the Antarctic here. Now it's kind of warm. I don't know what it's going to be like tomorrow. So dress like it's winter and summer. Detective Verna, you're still under oath, and the defense may continue.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Detective Verna, you testified to, or what was played for you, were a series of phone calls between Monica Sementilli and you or Detective Parshall. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there were even more phone calls that you were not privy to because you were on just one side of the conversation and it was not recorded.
Yes.
So is it fair to say that she called many times to ask for an update on the case?
Yes.
And whenever you needed information from her, you called her?
Correct.
And that included some walkways, walkthroughs of the house, again, even after the initial night of the murder. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, many of those phone calls to you had to do with the DNA evidence. Do you recall that?
She was asking for updates, yes. I don't know specifically. There were times where she asked about what we found in the Porsche, if anything had come back, yes. So I guess we could assume that's about DNA. I don't know if the word DNA were ever brought up.
Well, the idea was trying to identify the persons who killed her husband.
Yes.
That's how she presented it. And each time you indicated that, first, that there were many swabs you had to turn over, like 145, something like that, and you had to do it in sections, and it took a while to do that. You remember that?
Yes.
This was after you had already gotten the match of Baker as matching his DNA matching the blood in the car, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what you told her about the delay in obtaining the results of the blood comparisons was not true. It was a lie.
Information's a two-way street, sir. We were getting a lot of lies on our side, too.
Your Honor, we motion to strike. I have no doubt that whatever Ms. Sementilli said has been played for the jury, and we'll get to that. I'm talking about what you said. Okay?
We did not tell her the truth.
Okay. From the very, well, I assume the first night you were there and you questioned her about the murder, you told her the truth and you felt she was answering the truth as well.
Yes.
Okay. It was only on February 14th when you got the DNA results that you decided to do a ruse, as they say. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That was a decision by you and Detective Porsche, is that right?
Yes.
And did it involve the district attorney's office?
No.
At some point, did you involve the district attorney's office in your investigation in terms of their input or what they wished you to do or not do?
I believe at one point, Detective Castro, our supervisor, had reached out to the DA's office, but that was really about it. I don't think there was a ton of input from their side.
Was there an approval of your deciding, even though you had sufficient evidence, not to go out and arrest Robert Baker?
Well, I'm sorry, repeat it again?
Was there an approval by the district attorney's office, as far as you knew, not to go out and arrest Robert Baker as soon as you found his blood all over the house and in the car?
I'm going to object. Calls for speculation and hearsay.
That's form system.
Did you seek any approval of the district attorney's office to halt or to wait on any arrest of Robert Baker?
Never once in my 20 years in law enforcement have I ever sought out the advice of the DA's office on how to handle a particular case, especially when it comes down to an arrest.
Okay. So that is left at least, well, let's just stick with this case. This was left entirely to you and Detective Parshall, is that correct?
The immediate decision, yes, although we do consult with our own supervision. Sure.
Okay. So did you have to get permission from your supervisors not to go out and arrest Robert Baker, even though you had sufficient cause to do so?
No.
It was your decision?
Yes.
Okay. And it was your decision from that point on to lie to Monica Sementilli every time you spoke to her about the progress of the case, correct?
Yes, sir.
And each time she asked you about, what about the DNA, hasn't it been submitted, anything of that nature, your response was, we've tried, it's a lot of DNA, correct?
Yes.
At one time you said it's all coming back to Fabio Sementilli, the matches, so that's not helping us, correct?
Correct.
On numerous occasions, and you correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps on every occasion you spoke to her, you said, don't worry, we'll get there, we'll find it, we'll solve this, just be patient.
Yes, sir.
But we can't tell you the progress of the case other than that, correct?
Correct.
And the reason for that is from the moment you got the positive match on the DNA, you decided that your investigation was going to focus on Monica Sementilli, correct?
No, it focused on Robert Baker, and what Baker's activities were encompassed Monica Sementilli.
Okay. But Robert Baker, you could have arrested at any time after you got the DNA match, correct?
Sure.
What you were looking for is evidence involving Robert Baker and Monica Sementilli.
We were building a case, sir.
Okay. Building a case based on a belief that because she was having an affair with Mr. Baker, she likely was involved in the murder as well.
It definitely raised some suspicions.
Okay, fair enough. And a result of those suspicions, you engaged in an investigation that was quite detailed and involved quite a few officers and so forth to try and follow the steps and find the conduct, anything you could determine regarding the relationship between Monica Sementilli and Robert Baker.
Yes.
And that involved search warrants to get records of messages, text messages, anything of that nature, correct?
That's very common in most every case I've ever done.
Okay, and it was common in this case as well.
Yes.
But I assume it's not common in every case to have the parties tailed or officers placing a vehicle right next to theirs to try to overhear what they were saying, things of that nature.
Every case is unique.
Okay. And again, that was evidence to document the relationship between Monica Sementilli and Robert Baker.
At that point, yes.
Okay. That continued from February 14th until the arrest, which was not until June of 2017. Is that correct?
I believe so.
So we're talking about 4 or 5 months. Is that correct?
Yeah, roughly.
And during that period of time, Robert Baker, who you had every reason to believe was a cold-blooded killer, was left on the street. Correct?
Yes.
As was, not your intention, but as was whoever his partner was. Correct?
Yes, sir.
You could have arrested Mr. Baker and asked him who his partner was, or tried to make some kind of a deal with him if the district attorney's office agreed, or taken a lot of different steps to determine the second killer, correct?
Could have.
You did not.
Did not.
The focus was on Monica Sementilli at that time.
Focus was on building a case, sir.
Against Monica Sementilli.
We wanted to find the truth of what happened, and I believe we did.
I understand. And that's why you're here testifying.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's why we have a jury to decide whether it's been proven or not.
Object to counsel's soliloquy and ask that.
That's correct. It's getting argumentative now. Let's proceed, please.
Thank you. But the focus was on her and Mr. Baker, correct?
At that point, yes.
Okay. And again, it involved following her, videoing contact she had with Mr. Baker. Is that correct?
Yes.
Were you involved personally in that, or was that, for lack of a better word, farmed out to another agency of the police department?
It's farmed out, and I can explain why if that helps.
Well, I assume it has to do with personnel,
It's one reason, yes.
and they're better equipped to do that because they do narcotics and tailing and things of that nature?
Yes, not only better equipped, but they also have special training as far as following people and the vehicles to do so and everything else. So,
But you had to give them, you or Detective Parshall, the instructions as to what you wanted them to do.
correct.
All right? And I assume that took place over a series of meetings and so forth.
Yes.
And the instructions were, I know you said to build a case, but let's get more specific. Were the instructions to follow her and him whenever they could?
I don't know about whenever they could. They also have other, assignments they're doing. So,
Who chose then when and how they would be followed or tailed?
I believe it was based on their availability.
Okay.
Yeah.
And their instructions were to, follow her from her residence or wherever she was going on particular days, correct?
Yes, to see the kind of activity that was going on.
All right. And also to follow Mr. Baker, correct?
Yes.
All right. Was Mr. Baker followed every day, as far as you know,
It's
during that
impossible.
4 or 5 month period?
No, it's impossible.
Okay, obviously. So again, during that time period, you were aware that a murderer was on the streets who could have murdered again, correct?
It's argumentative. Sustain on that ground.
All right. You were aware that Mr. Baker, in your opinion, was a cold-blooded killer, correct?
Been asked and answered twice now.
It's cumulative.
And he was followed only at times that it was convenient for robbery, homicide, or narcotics to do so, correct?
Correct.
Did you give them any specific orders as to when to do that, or was that left entirely up to them?
It was left up to them.
As well as following Monica Sementilli, is that correct?
Correct.
In the meantime, you were engaged in continuous contact with Monica Sementilli, correct?
Yes, when she called, or when Detective Parshall decided to call her, yes.
Okay. And when Detective Parshall decided to call her, do you know, was that on his impetus, or was that to return a call from her?
I think there was both.
Okay. I assume you did not find it unusual that the spouse of a killed husband, assuming she was innocent, would also be calling and wanting to know what the stage was in the investigation, correct?
Sure.
Okay. So in doing so, you expected perhaps that to occur on numerous occasions, correct?
Yes.
And on many of those occasions, there was no mention of life insurance or anything of that nature.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
It had mostly to do with, can you tell me what's going on? Why haven't you solved this? What about the DNA? And so forth and so on.
I don't know if mostly is the proper term, but yes, there was questions involved of all types.
Okay. And in all fairness, we have heard the actual conversations with transcripts documenting the nature of the calls, the exact contents of the calls, whether they were from her to you or you to her, and so forth and so on.
Correct.
Would you say they accurately reflected the conversations and the contacts between you and Detective Pershall and Monica Sementilli?
Yes, 100%.
Were there any other individuals in LAPD or on the case, as far as you know, who were contacting or being contacted by Monica Sementilli?
Not in regular contact, no. I mean, there may have been a random phone call or something. She may have talked to our supervisor at some point. I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I assume many times it was her leaving a message, and the person who would call back would be you and Detective Pershall.
Correct.
And again, every time that occurred, you were able to tape record that conversation. Is that correct?
I'm going to object again. That mistakes the evidence.
I'll rephrase the question.
Very good.
Your Honor. The best you could, you were able to tape record those conversations, unless it was a conversation between Pershall and her, and you had not had the ability to record her side of the conversation.
Every effort was made to record the conversations.
Some you were not able to do.
Correct.
Now, at some point, in fact, in the very beginning, on the first day that you had gone to the scene and gone through the residence and spoken to Monica Sementilli, you had asked her, you said something like, is this a dumb question, but do you have life insurance? And she had mentioned she wasn't sure, maybe with MetLife, the company that he works for, correct?
I believe she said that there was a policy, but only for the son, not her son, but Fabio's son. And I don't recall what the actual terminology was, but yes, there was possibly a company policy, maybe some stock options.
Okay.
Like
So possibly a company policy,
Right.
but there was a separate policy that Fabio Sementilli, to her knowledge, had taken out for Luigi, his son, by his first marriage. Is that correct?
That's what I recall.
Okay. Now, you became aware at some point that the insurance with MetLife was not just for Monica Sementilli, it was divided between her and her two children, correct?
Yes.
Jessica and Isabella, correct?
Correct.
And I take it that at no time did you have any question about whether or not they were involved somehow in illegal conduct or the murder of their father.
Correct.
So from the very beginning, you informed MetLife that the insurance for the two girls, as far as you were concerned, could be paid?
So I wasn't privy to that conversation. I believe that was Detective Pershall that handled that. So I don't know what exactly was spoken about, but yes, I'll agree with you that we did not believe that the girls were involved.
And Detective Pershall is the one who dealt with that?
Yes.
Why?
Well, again, this was his case. I was assisting him on it, so he was the primary detective and had those conversations.
But there were many times we heard on the tape that there was some conversation about sending in some form or the LA Police Department doing something with the company regarding the payment of the insurance, correct?
Correct.
And that had to do with clearing one or more of the parties, correct?
Yes.
At some point, we heard a colloquy involving was Fabio the aggressor, and obviously he was not in this case, as far as you know, correct?
Correct.
But that would be one of the questions that the insurance company would be interested in terms of paying his policy.
Yes.
I'm going to object. Calls for speculation. Move to strike.
It would. The answer's already in. Your motion's denied.
Did you make it clear to MetLife or the insurance company that the two children should be paid?
Again, I didn't have discussions with MetLife regarding that.
But when Monica kept bringing it up, you became aware that they had not yet been paid their shares of the life insurance from their father,
I'm going to
correct?
object again. Calls for speculation.
We heard on the tape recording, the question came up about you filling out forms or LAPD filling out forms for the insurance company, correct?
Same objection. It's been asked and answered 3 times.
Are we talking about the date, I believe was June 14th? Is that the call we're talking about?
Fair enough, yes?
Yeah, again, that was a ruse, that there was a secretary filling out a form to release the life insurance.
But why was there a ruse about the 2 children?
There wasn't a ruse about the 2 children. That was in regards to her.
So it is your testimony, as far as you knew, that LAPD was putting causing no problems or any hold on any life insurance for the 2 girls.
That's my understanding.
Did you yourself ever determine whether or not, in those several months until the arrest of Monica Sementilli, whether the children had ever been paid the life insurance?
That's irrelevant.
Sustained.
My point is, when she was calling up, at times talking about the life insurance, were you clear as to whether or not she was talking about herself or her children? Or was that, again, Detective Parshaw?
Again, I didn't have any dealings with the life insurance company at all. My understanding was she was talking about her personal policy. I don't know.
Okay, you don't know. You didn't follow through as far as the children were concerned and so forth.
It's a third party that's dealing with that. It's not our police department.
But, okay, someone in the police department is in charge of that, but not you.
Correct.
Okay. At any time during the course of your investigation until the arrest of Monica Sementilli, did you ever cease lying to her about the case?
I'm going to object it's vague as to what particular issue.
It's overruled.
So from the moment this case started until the end of the case, I think there was plenty of times we spoke truthfully to her. There was obviously times where we used tactics to not give her specific information that could be used to identify what we were working on. We knew she had a relationship going with Mr. Baker at some point, and of course if we decided to say that, yeah, Mr. Baker, his DNA is in the vehicle and it's in the house, our case goes in the toilet. So.
Well, okay, your case goes in the toilet at any time that you said Mr. Baker was the second individual. Is that what you're saying? Was the killer of Fabio Sementilli?
Right. Based on the evidence it's seen that came back to Mr. Baker, knowing that Mr. Baker and Monica were in a relationship of some sort, we believed that there would be destruction of evidence the moment that we went and said to her, hey, by the way, the person you're having a relationship with, his blood's at your house.
And you could not have gotten search warrants and so forth to serve on Mr. Baker concurrent with his arrest, for instance?
That was done.
That was done?
Yes.
Okay. So at any time you could have gotten, and you did at some point, get search warrants for Mr. Baker and his residence, correct?
Could have, yes.
But you didn't do that until the arrest that took place in June.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Did you get periodic reports from the officers who were entrusted or assigned to do the following of Mr. Baker and Monica Sementilli, updates on what they had uncovered or what they found?
Yes.
And how often did that take place?
It wasn't immediate. I would say maybe within a day or two of their surveillance.
So every time within a day or two of their surveillance, you would get daily or every other day reports what had happened that day involving the two of them?
I wouldn't say every time. So I knew one of the members of the surveillance unit personally. So I would get, a message here or there saying, hey, this is what's going on. But in detail of everything that happened on a particular evening, like a log of everything, I would get that for days later.
Okay, so within a week, for instance?
Yes.
And we're talking about several months, correct?
Yes, but as I recall, it wasn't an ongoing. I mean, there were times when they were available. We would get them for a week or two, and then they'd have other assignments they have to do that we can't dominate their time.
But whenever they, for whatever time period it was, you got periodic reports from them as to what was going on.
Yes.
And was that initiated by you always, or were they instructed to contact you every time they, for instance, saw a Monica Sementilli in the company of Robert Baker?
They would provide a log of what they did.
Okay. When did it become clear to you that Monica Sementilli was having an affair with Robert Baker?
Pretty early on. I want to say after the 21st, we had the interview with her, the walkthrough at her house. I want to say, if I can refer to my notes here.
Sure.
Yeah, even prior to that. So on the 19th.
I'm sorry, prior to what?
Prior to the 21st of February, even on the 19th of February, they were already under surveillance. So,
Okay.
and primarily at that point, it was to monitor what Baker was up to.
And my question was, at what point was it clear to you, based on their contact with each other, that they were engaged in some kind of relationship?
Well, again, at the 19th, I mean, he picks her up.
Okay. At some point, did you become aware that it perhaps was a sexual relationship?
At some point, I don't recall the exact moment that was the case, but I remember G&D, Gang and Narcotic Division, was monitoring and surveilling them. And at one point, there was a situation outside of a bar. I believe it was referenced in the opening statements where she walks outside and actually touches a bouncer intimately and kisses that person. And so, of course, that's not Baker, but there's something going on here.
Okay.
Yes.
And is it fair to say there were other examples of that you became aware of during the course of your investigation?
At some point, yes.
So there was no doubt that they were having the affair.
It appeared so, yes.
Your role at that time, instead of arresting Mr. Baker at that time or arresting both of them, was to continue to see if you could get more evidence involving the affair. Is that correct?
Well, again, in my 9 years as a homicide detective,
Well, if you could limit it to just this
I
case.
can't.
You can't tell us if that was your goal?
No, I will tell you how I work my cases if you want to know.
Well, I'm assuming that the way you work your cases is the way you work this one.
Yes,
So just tell us how you work this one.
I want everybody, sir. I don't want one person. I don't want Mr. Baker. I want everybody that's involved, and that includes the third suspect walking up the street and anybody else that's involved in this case.
Okay, so by following Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli as often as could be done by the extent of the resources that you had, you were also trying to find the second killer
Yes.
by just seeing who was in contact with Mr. Baker?
No, at the same time all this is going on, we are writing search warrants. We're analyzing evidence from the search warrants as far as call detail records, if we can get them, text message information. We're looking for any way that Mr. Baker or anyone else may have been in contact with this third individual.
And at this point, based on what's occurred in this case, that an individual by the name of Christopher Austin has pled guilty to being the second killer in this case, correct?
Yes.
At the time that this was going on, were you aware of Christopher Austin?
No, sir.
And because you did not arrest Mr. Baker, you were not able to question him about Mr. Austin, correct?
This thing.
Did you ever question Mr. Baker before his arrest involving Christopher Austin?
No.
In fact, once again, your goal was to make sure that neither Ms. Sementilli or Mr. Baker were aware that you were following them.
That's correct.
The first night that you came out to the scene, Detective Verna, did it appear to you that Monica Sementilli was reacting as someone might expect a grieving spouse to react, just having learned about the brutal murder of her husband?
Yes. However,
And
as I was
I'll-
on direct.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
However, you said that one thing that you noticed was that you didn't see any tears. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you saw crying, you saw everything that we heard on that tape recording, which speaks for itself, but you're saying you did not see tears.
Physical tears. Correct.
Come on. And this would not have shown up, obviously, on the tape recording one way or the other, correct?
Yes.
Did you prepare a report that evening or thereafter of the first night that you were at the scene and conducted your investigation?
I did.
All right. And do you have that in front of you?
I can get it.
Your Honor, may I approach and maybe...
Again, counsel, you can approach without permission.
Let me show you, and you can ignore the highlighting,
Yes.
and look at that report and tell, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if that's the report that was prepared that night.
So this is the crime report. There's also should be a witness statement form that's also available.
Okay, and you have that as well.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. In either or in any of these reports, did you document that you thought it was unusual that there were no tears shown by Mrs. Sementilli?
I did not.
Why not?
Again, the relevance of it at the time, I believe, was inconsequential. People handle grief in a number of different ways. So maybe for her, that's a normal reaction. I don't know. I'm not, and simply based on whether the tears or not, it's not something I say, oh, this person did something based on that.
Okay.
So
So at the time, you didn't think it was necessarily unusual because people grieve in many different ways. Some have tears, some don't, so on and so on.
Sure.
And for that reason, you never recorded it in any report.
Yes.
You understood that it was not something that was going to show up by the recording, which otherwise would be the best way of determining what went on and what you were told or not told during any of these interviews, and we have all of them. You understand that?
Right.
So the only way that would be documented would be if you had written it in some report.
Correct.
Do you remember the first time that you first mentioned believing or noticing that there were no tears being by Mrs. Sementilli when you interviewed her the first time?
Well, the night of, my partner and I both commented on it.
Okay.
So that was the first time.
And did he record it anywhere?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And as I
It's
said,
something we put in our back pocket.
okay.
That's
And
it.
unfortunately, obviously, he's passed away, so
Yes.
we cannot do that. Any other way that you documented that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. But you did, well, after the arrest, eventually, of Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli, which took place in, I believe, June, is that correct?
Yes.
There was a grand jury it convened, and they took evidence in the case in terms of the investigation and so forth and the prosecution of the case, remember?
Yes.
And you were called to testify at that time.
Yes.
Right. And at that time, isn't it true that for the first time, you mentioned that you didn't see any tears on Mrs. Sementilli the night of the murder?
As far as in a court setting?
Yes.
Yes.
As far as any documentation of any kind, whether it be in court or out of court.
Yes.
That was the first time.
Yep.
And obviously, that followed not only the arrest of Monica Sementilli, but the prosecution of her as a co-conspirator in this case. Correct?
Yes.
So once you learned that she was being charged as a defendant, at that time, for the first time, you felt it important to document that you had seen, you thought, no tears. Correct?
It was the first time I was asked a question, yes. And so, yes, that's the first time I brought it up.
You say the first time you were asked a question. What were you asked?
Well, we were talking about the interview of Monica, and that's how it came up.
And you were asked by the district attorney?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And did she specifically ask you if you saw any tears or not?
I don't recall the exact question.
You volunteered that, isn't that true?
I might have.
If I could have 1 second, Your Honor, or 1 minute. All right, let me read from you from the grand jury transcript and see if this refreshes your memory or if this, in fact, was page 53.
Counsel, can you wait 1 moment?
Yes, page 53, lines 6 through 20.
It's not inconsistent with what you said.
Well, if it's to refresh his memory, it can't be read in any event. Sustained on that ground. If you want to refresh his memory, you can approach him with the transcript or the copy of the transcript.
All right, let me approach, Your Honor, if I may. Let me take a look at the line starting at the top of the page to yourself.
Yeah, I'm reading right now.
Okay. You were asked, was this the first time you've been asked to describe how Monica Sementilli reacted or was reacting at the time that you first contacted her?
Yes,
Okay.
as far as I know.
And you indicated she was uncontrollably upset, correct?
Yes.
Breathing heavily, sobbing, physically
Your Honor, I
upset.
object to counsel reading from the transcript.
Well, I don't know if he's reading from the transcript or not. He's asking questions I'm allowing.
I'm just asking you if this is what occurred. You don't remember the exact questions and answers, right?
I don't.
I showed you the transcript. Does that refresh your memory?
Yeah, and it appears accurate.
Okay. And you said she was uncontrollably upset, breathing heavily, sobbing, just physically upset. However, I did notice that she was not crying. Remember that?
Yes.
And you were asked, what do you mean by that? And you said there weren't tears coming down her face when she was upset. Question, so in other words, she appeared to be crying, but there wasn't any actual tears. And you said correct. The question was, did that strike you as unusual at that time? And you said it did. But you did indicate that through your experience, people respond differently to notice of death and so forth.
Yes.
Right? That true?
Correct.
So although it was something you thought unusual, you didn't suspect anything at the moment. Is that right?
Correct. Like I said, something you put in your back pocket, that's it.
Okay.
There's nothing I can do with that.
And so if this investigation had resulted in the arrest and conviction of Robert Baker or anyone else, not including Mrs. Sementilli, it would have remained in your back pocket.
I'm not a psychologist, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Just a homicide detective.
But once you knew that she was charged and your investigation, you believed, had led to the prosecution of her, then you thought it was significant, correct?
Could be.
Took it out of your back pocket and said it for the first time before the grand jury.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was there anything else about the conduct of Monica Sementilli that first day, first night that you went to the scene that you felt was unusual or you put in your back pocket, for instance?
No.
She answered all the questions you had, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and told you where she had been that day, where Fabio was located when she left and when she came back and so forth and so on.
She answered all of our questions. I had nothing to go on whether they were accurate or not, but she answered every question.
Understood. And there were many other times when you called her and asked her to answer more questions or come out or do a walkthrough or so forth, correct?
Yes.
And every time she agreed and complied with your request, is that correct?
Okay.
Just, if she could, I mean, I know there were times she was out of town and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I did, some of the accuracy of her answers were definitely not good.
In your mind, obviously.
Your Honor, I would object to counsel's statement.
It's argumentative.
And strike his statement.
Statements of counsel cannot be stricken by law, but it's improper.
All right.
I'd ask the court to advise the jury.
Witness statements can be stricken. Counsel statements can just be admonished. Good enough, counsel?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Fine with me. Fortunately, in this case, obviously, we have transcripts of all the interviews and all the times you came out to the scene.
Yes.
You have questions concerning some of those answers, and obviously, the jury's going to hear that and our responses, and that's what we're here about.
Yes.
But my point is, at no time did she say to you, you know, I've got an attorney, and I've decided not to talk to you anymore.
No, she didn't say that.
At a couple of times, she even said to you, friends have been asking me to get a private investigator. Do you think I should do that? Right?
Yes.
And your response was, not necessary, we're getting close, you don't need it, basically.
She could do it if she wanted to. It's not.
Wait.
It has nothing to do with our investigation.
No, yeah, but do you recall in your response you said, we're getting close, don't worry about it, we'll get there. Is that right?
Yes.
And each time that she requested or talked to you about that or getting a private investigator, you continually said, we're almost there, we're about to solve this case, be patient.
Yeah,
we'll
essentially,
get there."
don't waste your money. We got it.
Okay. There were even times when she asked permission to go back to Canada for a memorial service and so forth.
I'm going to object. That assumes facts, not an answer.
I haven't heard the rest of the question. You may finish your question.
She had indicated you at times she could not meet you at the time that you had requested because she was going back for a memorial service for her husband, correct?
Overruled?
Yes.
And you said, fine, we'll make it another time. Is that right?
Correct.
Did you ever go back to the location and take a look at the safe?
I don't believe I did.
If this was indeed a no-knock burglary, you would have expected valuable items to have been taken, is that correct?
Knock knock. Burglary?
Yes, knock, yes.
I would assume so. Yeah.
Okay. Did you get a list from her of the items that she said she thought was missing and so forth?
At some point, yes.
Most of that was costume jewelry, said they didn't take the good stuff.
I think a set of pearls and currency. Yes.
And you had noticed, I believe, that there was a Rolex watch on the wrist of Fabio Sementilli when he died, correct?
Yes.
And it had remained there, had not been taken, correct?
Correct.
Which you thought was unusual if this was a knock-knock burglary. Or am I wrong?
I can explain if you'd like, but if you're going to take the time to, if you're going to go to somebody's place and do and if someone's present there, if you're going to someone's home and someone's present, it's no longer a burglary. Now you have a home invasion robbery. If you're going to go to that extent and you're going to kill the person, you might as well take what's value on them, correct? I mean, if you're going to go to all that work.
Okay.
So that's what we were believing.
And especially if you were staging a robbery or burglary, you would take the expensive items, correct?
Well, I object that calls for speculation.
Sustained.
In your experience? In your experience?
Same.
Would, if a burglary was being staged to cover up a murder, for instance, would you expect the Rolex and other expensive items to have been taken?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I've come across too many staged burglaries in my experience.
Okay.
So I don't know if I have expertise to answer that.
Okay. But the fact that the Rolex watch was not taken for you meant what?
Again, if you're going to go through all of the work and risk of not only burglarizing a house where no one is home, but if you're going to go there and commit a home invasion robbery, I would assume that you're going to take the valuable property that's there, including whatever is on the person's body.
And the fact that it was not taken was one item of evidence that you thought led to the fact that this may not have been a burglary, but instead a murder.
It's one piece, yes.
Okay. Okay. And that didn't, once you got the DNA results, the idea that this was a murder did not change. Is that correct?
You mean a burglary or?
Well, the idea that it was a burglary did not change. You were convinced it was not a burglary. This was a...
Right, it was always a murder.
A murder.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So once you made that determination, Detective Verna, again, your sole goal was to find as much evidence as you could against Monica Sementilli to tie her with Robert Baker.
My job was to solve this case, sir.
Okay. And that included, as you said, finding as much evidence as you could to document her contact and her affair with Robert Baker.
At the time, there was a strong suspicion that she may have been involved in what's going on in this case.
And your job
And
was
that's why we were doing what we were doing.
and your job was to find evidence to prove that that was true or not true. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's what you did throughout your investigation, correct?
Yes.
Up to and including the arrest of Robert Baker and Monica Sementilli. Is that right?
Somewhat correct. We gave the case to Robbery Homicide Division at, again, sometime in March. And at that point, they were directing the progress of the case. We were present because we had a relationship with Monica as far as communication goes. But they were taking the wheel at that point.
And you took advantage of that relationship to be the primary contact between yourself and Monica Sementilli, correct?
Advantage?
Well, you used it to try to get evidence, correct?
I don't know how much we gained by remaining in contact with her, except for there would need to be a person that needed to be in contact with her.
Well, who decided it was going to be you as opposed to someone else?
We had built a rapport, sir.
Okay. So using that rapport, you took advantage of that to stay in contact with her and, in effect, to lie to her about what the investigation had revealed, where it was leading, and what you already knew about it.
Well, I don't agree with your word advantage. I mean, we didn't really have much of an advantage. We were basically just a point of contact at that point, and if you look back, I don't think there's a ton of evidence that we gained between that period of March to June. I mean, there were some phone calls that were made, but there was nothing super significant that was found out. So I think the term advantage is not correct.
Exactly. You didn't find a whole bunch of evidence to tie her at that time.
That's not what I said. I said The phone calls did not show much.
Okay. And the visits to the scene with her as well. I'll withdraw the question.
All right.
I have nothing further.
Any redirect?
Very briefly. When you spoke to the defendant after learning from her daughter Jessica that Baker had spent the night in her mother's bed while her father Fabio was out of town, and you asked her specifically about all the individuals in the racquetball league, specifically a person named Robert. The defendant lied to you at that point, correct? She told you she thought his last name was Baker, correct?
That's what she said, yes.
You also were asked about multiple questions with respect to why this didn't look like it was consistent with the knock-knock burglars. None of those cases involved a murder of someone, a homeowner, correct?
That I'm aware of, yes.
On top of that, in those cases, they went out of their way not to contact anybody who might have been in the home, correct?
It appeared that way, yes.
And as I asked you a few days ago, last week, in this case, it appeared that the homeowner was targeted as opposed to any property in the house. Is that right?
Yes.
And so at that point, it didn't fit the profile of a home burglary. Is that right?
It was inconsistent with the crimes that were occurring in that area, yes.
And more than that, as you pointed out, given that the homeowner was in the residence or outside of the residence, the one room that was targeted, the master bedroom, had an indication that the burglary was subsequent to the murder, correct?
Yes.
Where the victim was on the back patio area. Is that right?
Correct.
In addition to attempting to conceal her familiarity with the person whose DNA came back to the crime scene as well as in the car, in this case, the defendant also lied to you with respect to her knowledge of a life insurance policy where she was the main beneficiary, correct?
That's argument.
Sustained.
Did the defendant lie to you regarding the fact that she was the main beneficiary on a life insurance policy?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
Did the defendant tell you the truth regarding the fact that she was the main beneficiary on a life insurance policy?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
No comment.
Did the defendant ever mention to you that she knew she was the main beneficiary on a life insurance policy?
No.
Along with the affair-raising suspicions, did her repeated lies also raise suspicion?
Objection, argumentative.
It is sustained.
Going back to when you were asked about your testimony before the grand jury, and you said that was the first time you were asked the question. In looking at that portion of your testimony, does that actually indicate that you were asked the question about the defendant's demeanor for the first time in a court?
Yes.
I have nothing further.
Any recross?
Yes, Your Honor. Concerning the life insurance, You were aware, were you not, that a party to a murder could not benefit by getting the life insurance under the current state of the law in California?
I'm going to check, it's irrelevant.
I'll title.
It's overruled.
I'm not aware of that specific law. We generally handle gang homicides in our bureau. So
All right, I'm going to object, Your Honor. I think that's non-responsive.
No, it explains why this person's not knowledgeable in this area.
gang members don't typically have life insurance policies, so it's not something I dealt with all the time.
Well, were you never informed by the district attorney's office or anyone else in law enforcement that you should contact MetLife and tell them that Monica Sementilli, in your mind, was a suspect in this case, and therefore she should not be awarded the life insurance she would ordinarily have been due from MetLife?
I'm pretty sure indirectly that's what was going on.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm pretty sure indirectly that's what was going on.
What, you say indirectly?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell somebody that hey, we're investigating her as the one of the suspects of this case. It's not going to happen.
Well,
I don't care who they are.
But you were aware, LAPD, and you were aware that she had life insurance with MetLife,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Okay. And you were aware it hadn't been paid because she was asking you about it, correct? And when were you going to find out who the hell killed her husband?
I'm going to check, Your Honor. It's argumentative and it's also cumulative.
It's overruled.
Say it again.
She was constantly hounding you about when you were going to find out who killed her husband.
She was.
Correct? And also the fact that until you found who killed her husband or cleared her, they would not award her the life insurance, correct?
She was going to have to wait. You're right.
Right. And her children as well?
I'm not aware of the children if the children got paid out or not.
All right. And she even indicated to you that she may have to move because of what was going on financially and so forth.
Decisions have consequences, sir.
Okay. Well, my question is, did she tell you that?
Yes.
And that whatever salary MetLife, his company, P&G, were paying was going to run out after 6 months, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And she even asked you, you know, if that was all right, if she moved or whatever, and you said that's up to you, correct?
Yep.
So every time she contacted you and was asking what the hell was going on with this case, you basically led her on to say, don't worry, we've got it. DNA's going to match. We'll take care of it, correct?
We had it, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further by the people?
Yes, just briefly. That's what homicide investigators do, right?
Objection.
You investigate. You don't give your inside information of your investigation to the person you're investigating.
Based on the totality of the question, it's overruled. But next time there's an objection, stop.
I'm sorry?
Next time there's an objection, stop and let me say something.
I-
There's an objection in the middle of your sentence. I would not have avowed the objection, but you need to stop so I can rule.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Okay. You may
Can you
answer.
Can you repeat
Sure.
it?
As a homicide investigator, or as a homicide investigator, you don't tell suspects that you're investigating them, correct?
Unless you got a really good reason to do so.
And you don't tell them what evidence you have against them, correct?
Correct.
I have nothing further.
Anything further?
Just one question. The real good reason might have been to say, Monica Sementilli, we know you're having an affair with Robert Baker. He was a killer in this case. You tell us what happened. You never said that to her.
She's the one that said her boyfriend was her husband, and that was not the case.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further by the people?
No.
Thank you, Detective Verna. You're
Thank you.
excused. Pick my call the next one.